Welcome to GermiNation, the podcast where seeds tell their stories. I'm your host, Cindy Hicks, coming to you from the Iowa State University Seed Science Center, a global leader in seed research, education, and outreach. Each episode, we dig into the beauty, wonder, and science of seeds, those tiny little powerhouses at the heart of agriculture, biodiversity, and global food security. Through conversations with scientists, farmers, industry leaders, and change makers around the world, we explore how seeds connect us, sustain us, and shape our future. This is GermiNation, where every great story starts with a seed. If you are a professional working in the seed sector, the graduate program in seed technology and business has been designed specifically with your needs in mind. The STB program offers a completely online, interdisciplinary Master of Science degree that provides you with current seed science and technology instruction, along with essential courses in business management and a rigorous integrated curriculum. If you're ready to be a seed leader, apply today at seedgrad@iastate.edu.
Hey, little seed. What do you need to help you grow?
Today on GermiNation, we're joined by someone whose work sits at the cutting edge of molecular seed diagnostics. Jeffrey Williams, Research Scientist 3 at Iowa State University Seed Science Center. Jeffrey brings a deep bench of expertise in microbiology, having sharpened his skills at Corteva's Plant Diagnostics Lab, contributing to advanced plant health initiatives. Now at the Seed Science Center, Jeffrey plays a pivotal role in molecular seed quality assurance, especially in support of the USDA National Seed Health System, which helps ensure that U.S. seed exports meet international phytosanitary standards. His work directly supports global trade, agricultural sustainability, and the confidence farmers have in the seed they plant. We're thrilled to dig into his journey, the molecular mysteries of seed health, and the passion that drives his work. Welcome to GermiNation, Jeffrey.
Thank you for having me.
Before we jump into today's subject, can you get me up to speed on what goes into developing a new test for a pathogen? What are the biggest hurdles in developing and validating tests?
There's a lot that goes into that. First thing starts off with a need. Which pathogen do we develop the next test for? Some of that can be determined by new regulations from other countries. Say, hey, we don't have this disease. We want to make sure that anything that comes to us does not have that disease present. So I would say it starts with the need. The other needs can come from updating some old standard methods that we've had for quite some time. There are new technologies with things like PCR that you can get accurate results with a much quicker turnaround time compared to some conventional methods like dilution plating or blotter assays. Some of that turnaround time is really valuable for companies so they can ship their seed and just in time and make those rigorous deadlines for themselves. But once something's been identified, then you can really start to work on the science part of it. So, if we already have a method that's been approved, that's kind of our baseline there. We have to make sure that we meet our performance based on that. So when we go through things like, there's the seed processing part, and there are different things that you can optimize throughout that process, such as, which buffer I'm going to use, how to soak it. Does it need an overnight soak? Can you just do it within an hour? Do we grind the seed, dry grind, wet grind? A lot of things like that, because we need access to the pathogen, depending on the test we're developing here. And then there are different ways to get that. If we're doing a PCR-based assay, we need to get the DNA from that. So we can process our seed, we can collect our pathogen. If it's bacterial, generally we take aliquots of the seed extract buffer, spin that down, and you have a bacterial pellet. Viruses, you just take the buffer and do an extraction straight from that. And then going through, like a DNA or an RNA extraction phase to get the material that you need to run your PCR tests. Kind of the development, going through each of those steps, there are a lot of little things that you can optimize along the way. But just keeping in mind that we have to match that performance of the previous test, which some of these tests have been around for a long time, and the power of those are not to be underestimated. So that can be a very challenging part, just to kind of prove the concept of this. So once you hit your benchmarks, you can play around with things, trying to make things affordable, making things user-friendly. We don't want to make things that are more complicated than they have to be. We like to try to keep things simple, still accurate. So that's kind of on the development side of things. Those are kind of some of the things that we start to look at and refine as we whittle our way into the weeds.
Wandering around the Seed Science Center like I do, I've heard a lot about a pathogen that affects corn, Goss's wilt. So what exactly is Goss's wilt? Where is it showing up now? And why should seed companies and growers care about this?
Yeah, so Goss's wilt is caused by the bacterial kind of pathogen Clavibacter nebraskaensis. It's been around in the Midwest, and for decades, people have known about it. It causes some lesions on the leaves primarily, and it has these iconic, what they call freckles. So these little darker spots that can appear around these brown lesions. And upon looking at them, there'll be dark spots. But then when you hold them up against a backlight or hold it up into the sun if you're in the field, those dark spots will turn translucent. And that's the iconic symptom of Goss's wilt.
But those foliar symptoms there are, they're classic in the sense of that's what it's easy to diagnose it. There's really nothing else that causes that same kind of freckling. But in terms of, the severity of the disease, it's more of it's called Goss's wilt for a reason. So Clavibacter nebraskaensis can get into the vascular system, and there it can colonize and spread systemically throughout the plant. But then that colonization, that's where the wilting comes from. It prevents the spread of the water and the nutrients to the rest of the plant and kind of chokes that off. But there are several things that can cause wilting. So that seeing those wilting symptoms does not necessarily mean, Goss's wilt. Further diagnostics would be needed to confirm that. In there, and that's kind of where the more dangerous part of the infection is that's how the bacteria can spread to the seed, is through this vascular systemic infection, which is not always correlated with its foliar symptoms. Like, you can still have foliar symptoms but have clean seed. There is a distinction that needs to be made there. But yeah, where we are finding Goss's wilt throughout the world is, we have it here. It's been around here in the United States, and at least in the Midwest, for decades, and we've known about that. Outside the United States, we can find that in Mexico, and more recently, we found that in South Africa. So it's a growing interest, growing concern across the world. And Chile, as we know, is adding this to their import requirements, their testing requirements. They want to keep that out of their country. Other countries are also considering this for regulations, possibly in the future.
So what diagnostic methods are most reliable today for detecting this?
Sure. So when it comes to infection in the plant, this one has pretty characteristic, unique symptoms that aren't really easily identified or misidentified with another pathogen. The foliar symptoms there, you're going to get this brown lesion that kind of looks like everything else. But when it comes to detection in the seed, that's where it gets a little bit trickier. You can look at the infected seed and it'll look just like everything else. It won't have any unique symptoms like purple seed stain, for instance. We rely on culturing and molecular techniques to detect what the eye cannot in that instance.
What's the current best practice workflow in the seed health lab?
Well, currently, for the NSHS protocol, it's a plating method. So you'll grind the seed, you can soak it in buffer, and then put that out on a semi-selective media and see what grows out. This is a method that's been around for a while and is now currently being updated to add molecular capabilities to that, where we can do pre-screens with qPCR. We can still do the plating assay, but then we've also added a confirmation PCR with the suspect colonies that you'll see growing on the plates, just to aid with the identification And sometimes it can look a little bit like something else, or if you're not quite sure what it looks like on the plate, that PCR is nice to give you a little bit of peace of mind.
What are we looking at for turnaround time on this, and what makes it faster or slower?
With this new method that's coming up now, you can get same-day turnaround time with the seed extract qPCR method. But once the samples arrived at the lab, going through the seed processing, the DNA extraction, and running the qPCR, could be a long day, but you can get it done in a day. As opposed to the old method, which growing it out on a plate, maybe you could start to see things in the 3 to 5 day range, but to get a good negative, you'd want to run it for at least 7 to 9 days.
What role has the Seed Science Center played in this new method?
Well, the first thing that needs to be mentioned here is that this is a major collaborative effort between academic scientists and industry scientists. Industry has played a major role in this, providing their input, their resources, their science, their minds. They've been doing this and running this for a very long time, this being seed health testing, and they've had a major role in the development and validation of this assay. So this does not go down to the credit of any one or even a few people. If you think about all the people that have had their names or their hands in this project in one way or another, I would say we're at least looking at least 30 people. The roles here that the Seed Science Center has played has kind of changed and evolved a lot over the process. We do a lot of the science here. We like to back up things here. Things that we are finding, things that other people are finding, and verifying those information, those data in multiple labs. So we do some of the bench work here, but also, when it comes to the collaboration here, this is our first National Seed Health System Administration Unit led method development and validation effort that we've done, working with other collaborators and their science teams, trying to figure out the next directions and where to go and how to interpret this data to develop the best protocol that we can to give us the best performance that we can develop. And then working through our validation phase, trying to collaborate with everybody and work together so we're all doing the same things, we're looking at it the same way, and so our data can be put together into a comprehensive validation package. In short, we're doing some of the science here. We're doing a lot of leadership. We're doing collaborations, getting people to work together, communications. And yeah, we're kind of taking on whatever we need to get this project done, and within a reasonably timely manner too. Yeah, so these come back to the Chile regulations, the big ones that are coming up soon. We'll have our deadline at the end of 2026. We got to be ready for the following year when those new regulations go into place. But, we're also starting to get some attention from other countries as well, so they might not be too behind these new Chile regulations there. But we're doing really well, and we can meet those deadlines, no problem.
Why is this important to the farmer?
We're developing and validating a testing method for Clavibacter nebraskaensis. Well, what does that do? How does that function in the real world? We test the seed to see if it is free from this disease, from this pathogen, not the disease. This is not diagnostics, this is detection. So we can say, okay, we are certain that these lots that are moving across these country lines are free from this pathogen. So we are preventing the potential spread of this pathogen. So farmer on the other side, the importing country side, they're going to have more confidence to plant this in their field and then not have it persist. We know that this Clavibacter nebraskaensis can persist in leaf material and plant material. It can overwinter, it can survive. So it has the potential to persist in any field in which it is found.
Is there anything that can be done in treating or conditioning the seed?
Currently, there are no seed treatments that are approved for bacteria on corn. We talked about the idea that Goss's seed can be infected through this systemic vascular infection. Spread through the plant. It can get into the cob and get into the seeds. And when it does, it can cause the seeds to be smaller. They'll be maybe a little more wrinkly or shriveled. And so where seed conditioning can come in is that it can sort out these smaller seeds, remove the infection that way, filter those out from the healthy ones. But more work is needed to be done on this to give you a more definitive answer. But we have seen in the lab a lot of these Goss seeds, the ones with higher titers, ones that are hotter and that are found associated with more susceptible varieties and more susceptible hybrids of corn, that those seeds are indeed smaller. It is kind of a trend there. So maybe there is a way that conditioning can help filter out a lot of those infected seeds.
What are the biggest hurdles in developing or validating current tests?
The biggest one for us, for this particular method, for Clavibacter nebraskaensis, was matching the sensitivity of dilution plating. Plating these seed samples is actually a really powerful technique. It's been around for a long time, for decades, and it stood the test of time. It's really a good test. It just takes time. And with modern deadlines and modern efficiencies and how quickly these seeds need to move, that turnaround time is just a little bit too slow. That's why we wanted to introduce this SAQ-PCR, the seed extract qPCR method, to give that same day turnaround time. But it wasn't that easy. We want to make sure that, yes, we can develop new tests and they can have a better turnaround time and save that efficiency, but the test still needs to match or exceed the performance of the previous test. That's a very big thing that we take seriously. So that was our biggest hurdle up front out of the gate. So
what happens if you get a positive with the new test? What's the next step?
You don't ship that seed to that country again.
Testing-wise, what is the next step? Do you have to validate that positive, or is the new method good enough to say, okay, this is infected?
Well, if you do get a positive with this new seed extract qPCR, which again is our indirect method, it is a pre-screen. If you do get that positive there, though, something that we would call a suspect positive, because you don't need to have this live cell, this viable pathogen there for this to get a positive. Maybe the pathogen was there at one time, it was alive and doing well, but it's since died, it's shriveled up, and it's completely busted open and its innards are out there. That DNA can persist, and it doesn't even have to be fully intact DNA. It can be fragments of the genome that's still tripping the test here. I mean, we're only amplifying a really small region of the genome, so the odds of that happening can be good if the pathogen was already present. To see that this fingerprint was there to trip this qPCR test would give you this suspect positive, and that's why we have these direct method follow-ups there. So in this case with the Clavibacter nebraskaensis, we would go to dilution plating there to get us that confirmation that yes, the pathogen is there, yes, it can be grown on these plates, and that gives us something a little bit more concrete instead of just finding that fingerprint there. And then, well, that's kind of up to the company too. At any point there, if they get a suspect caught positive from this qPCR, they can stop there and just say, like, hey, this lot's positive, we'll do something else with it. Or they can continue on to that dilution plating to get further confirmation to say, yes, we were able to detect it, we were able to grow it in the lab, it is present in this lot, and we need to do something different with it. So it's kind of up to them and their choice and what their practices are.
Looking into the future, are there any promising on-site or rapid tests that could cut days into hours?
There are technologies out there where you can do field tests. Those are a little bit more common for foliar diseases, so it's a little bit easier just to take a sample from a leaf than it is from seed. And the way that the seed is harvested and conditioned and put into lots, and the way that it's sampled to get a good representation of the entire lot, it would be difficult to do that in the lab, or to do that in the field, I'm sorry. Now, if you are, and that's for official testing anyways, but if you see something in the field and you want to do some unofficial tests just to know what's going on in your field, and you see some obvious symptoms on some corn seed, there are some technologies out there, such as lamp assays, that are being developed and run, out of the back of somebody's truck. They can give you those tests and answers, or tests and hours, but there are a lot of difficulties in there with those tests. And for one instance, the sensitivity can be a little bit lower with those, but people are still actively pursuing those as viable options. So it's difficult to avoid the lab at this point for seed processing, for seed diagnostics, but it may get there. It may get there.
Is there anything else the seed industry needs to know right now about Goss's Wilt and the new method of testing that you were working on?
Well, first, I'd like to acknowledge again and say how proud I am of everybody, not just on the government and academic side, but also the industry scientists that have been working with us. Their efforts have been invaluable in this whole process. We've had a lot of people, a lot of good scientists come together, put our heads together, and do a lot of hard work in the lab. And it's really come together. It's come together very well. It's come together very quickly, and that needs to be recognized. With this effort that everybody's done, we have a lot of confidence in this test. This was a lot of work. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes diligence, but we do eventually get there, and we get what we need. And through our rigorous validation, that data collection gives us the confidence to give this new method our stamp of approval.
Okay, well, Jeffrey, thank you for joining us today. This has been a very interesting and enlightening discussion, and I think our listeners will find it to be so as well.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been an interesting experience for me. I hope I've provided some interesting points of conversation or discussion.
Absolutely. And if you are interested in Goss's Wilt and an update on new seed health tests being developed by Iowa State University Seed Science Center, you can attend our ASTA session on December the 10th at 2:45 at the ASTA Field Crop Convention in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for tuning in today. We'd like to give a special thank you to Let's Roll Snowball for allowing us to use the seed song. If you enjoyed it, be sure to check out Let's Roll Snowball on YouTube for more fun and educational songs for children. GermiNation is a podcast produced by the Iowa State University Seed Science Center. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Iowa State University or the Seed Science Center. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Thank you for listening to GermiNation, where every great story starts with a seed.